It's time for a brand new series here on the channel, the Mount Rushmore of. And today it'll be Hell in a Cell matches. That's right, myself and NXSteve in a hot seat, and we're going to pick our Mount Rushmore of Hell in a Cell matches, the 4 best ones of all time. There's been plenty of Hell in a Cell matches in WWE history, and there's been many great ones as well. So it's been difficult, in my opinion, to narrow this down to only 4 selections. But NXSteve, it's been great to have you on board once again, and looking forward to hearing your first pick.
Yeah, dude. I mean, just the idea of you obviously always hear the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, where it's like, who are your 4 Mount Rush? But there's so many things that we can do with this, and the fact that we're starting off with Hell in a Cell matches because Bad Blood at the time of recording is going on this weekend, and yeah, it's just going to be fun to do. But my first pick is going to be of no surprise to anyone. It is the New Day versus the Usos, Hell in a Cell 2017. I think for a tag team match and putting it in Hell in a Cell, they were able to be so unique and so different with some of the stuff that they put on. It is generally, like I said, the second that the idea of this subject come up, but it was like instantly one of the first ones that came to my head. It's such a good match.
It's a brilliant match between the two teams. Obviously, there was at the time as well when New Day and Usos were just having great matches in general. Like, they could just throw them together. You knew, right, okay, we're under something special. And then it said for this October show, it was just Hell in a Cell. I think that was the actual pay-per-view name in 2017. And then when we're going to do this there, I was like, oh, bring on. There's some really fun, unique spots in it as well. And of course, the Usos walk away as 5-time tag team champions at that point as well. And yeah, fantastic match, great selection, and being a tag team specialist that you are, I suppose you should be no surprise that it would be your first pick.
Exactly. Yeah, dude. Like I said, it's just like you said, some of the unique offense. The tying Jimmy or Jay up in the corner with the kendo stick, such a brilliant spot. It's like one of the moments that just definitively stands out when you say Hell in a Cell matches to me. And yeah, that's it's again, like, tag team wrestling is my favorite thing, and it's just, again, Hell in a Cell just seems to mesh.
It certainly does indeed. Well, let's go on to my first selection for you then. And well, I'm going to go back to the original because there wouldn't be another Hell in a Cell match if the first one didn't go to plan. So Bad Blood, obviously, like you said, we're recording this on the week of a Bad Blood show where there'll also be Hell in a Cell, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre. That hasn't taken place yet by the time we're doing this. But the first ever one took place, obviously, in 1997 in your house show, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. If you want to do a brand new match stipulation, especially around that time period, and you wanted 2 performers to rely to go and give you a 5-star classic, these are the 2 people you call upon, and you would have been able to call upon them for, well, probably about another 15-20 years afterwards as well. Obviously, Shawn and Undertaker had a great sort of story going into it as well. Obviously, Shawn had the complications after SummerSlam 1997, the match they had at Crown Zero as well, which didn't get a conclusive victory. So having Hell in a Cell here was brilliant, and they just, brutal chair shots, battling inside, outside of the cell. The fact that you could get outside of this cage structure, when Shawn was sort of like thrown into the door, bleeding as well, trying to climb up the cell, get away from the Taker, ends up going through the announcer's table. It's just all fantastic stuff. And of course, look, there's that storyline that was building through the entire summer as well with, Kane as well. And that's where we got the mega debut, still one of the biggest debuts in company history as well. Everyone will go back to it. It's gotta be Kane, obviously coming in and drilling the Undertaker with a tombstone pile driver, so Shawn could just lay lifeless on top of the Undertaker to pick up the victory in that first Cell match. For me, it was 5 stars when I watched it. I've watched it since and felt the exact same. And for me, it's just a masterclass in wrestling, and it's almost the perfect introduction to a brand new match type. So for me, it has to be my number 1 pick.
Totally agree. It's it just sets a standard for that match type, and obviously with the time period and the fact that how people perceived Taker, and then obviously when Kane come in, and Kane obviously used to generally give people nightmares. It's like the most perfect match type with the perfect story. Do you know what I mean? It's they go together almost like, do you know what I mean? Milk and coffee, do you know what I mean? They just seem to mesh together. I don't unfortunately have it as on my Hall of Fame or my Mount Rushmore. My second match is actually the one that precedes this, which is Undertaker versus Mankind for King of the Ring 1998. I think personally this is the King of the Ring match that everyone has to follow the standard of, because this is absolutely crazy. The spots, and obviously famously Mankind coming off the top of the cage, one of the spots that they show every single time on every single pay-per-view or whatever, there's a video package of some kind, or don't try this at home. For me is the quintessential Hell in a Cell match that just sets the bar, and it's what everyone else has to try and beat.
Absolutely. Do you know what? I will just say it's on mine as well. Obviously, the second one, and obviously it shows a bit of an old school feel from me, but obviously I really enjoyed those early Hell in a Cell matches. I mean, look, Mankind being thrown off the top of the Hell in a Cell through the announcer's table, my God, he killed him. His God is my weakness. He's broken in half. Just those sort of lines from Jim Ross where it's just and you just genuinely thought, how has he gone flying off the top of this cell through the table as well? To think, then you think, well, the match is done. He then comes back. He then climbs to the top of the cell. Then he's chokeslammed through it. It's unbelievable. Obviously, he's got teeth sticking out of his nose at this point. Mankind's bleeding. He somehow still carries on the match. Do you know what I mean? Getting the offenses on the Undertaker. It's a brutal, barbaric match, and like you say, it's a follow that scenario. And to be honest, I think when it comes to Hell in a Cell and brutality, it's never quite ever been able to. You could never get it to that level again, because there was almost a hint of how can you do this and it looks safe? I mean, Mick Foley was severely injured after this one, and it's no surprise. And look, credit to him for putting his body on the line to try and entertain everybody at a time where there was outright warfare between WWE and WCW as well to turn the tide for WWE. It's more than I'd ever do, so credit to that, and it's definitely got to be on this list.
Yeah, agreed, man. Like I said, it's such a good match, and like I said, it just sets the bar for every Hell in a Cell match.
Certainly indeed. Well, we've got two each then. We share one. What's your third pick?
My third. Now, you said that the last match sets the bar for it. This match, I feel, is one that came very, very close to matching it, and if not even topping it. It's Triple H versus Cactus Jack from No Way Out 2000. This, for me, at that time, with that story as well, when Mankind becomes Cactus Jack because it's the only way that he can defeat Triple H, is just a story that is forever ingrained in my memory. And just everything that goes on in this match, the blood that Triple H pours out of his head, the barbed wire 2x4, the climbing up the cage, the setting the 2x4 on fire, and then obviously to get that ultimate spot where Mankind is lifted over his shoulders and goes through the cage, and that obviously ends up on the mat. Triple H getting down there, trying to nudge him to see if he's still alive, and then for Mankind to get up again and finish with Triple H delivering a pedigree for the win. It is probably one of the most, if not the goriest match when it comes to Hell in a Cells, but it was it was easily up there with Mankind's original one.
It's a fantastic match, and because I had the pleasure of watching it just recently as well, obviously watching the entire storyline going through the Royal Rumble, it's a great time, that one. Obviously, the spot of where he's back body drop to go through the top of the cell into the ring, and the ring sort of makes a big dent shape into it as well. Difference to the King of the Ring, where Foley just sort of bounces off the mat and it doesn't affect. Where here it feels like the spot is safer, but it also looks deadlier because of the fact he goes through the ring technically, and obviously it ends Mick Foley's career, so to speak, for about all of 2 weeks, but still was a very great stipulation match that they did at the time. Was barbaric, I would agree. It's not in my 4, but goodness was it close.
Yeah. I said such a good match, and like I said, I think for more than anything, it was the story at the time. And again, another one that you instantly think Hell in a Cell as a story. That one's just ingrained in my brain.
It's certainly indeed. Well, I'll tell you what, I've done 2 old school ones, so I'm going to bring things up to date for everyone, because I'm not just someone that's stuck in the past. I like to enjoy modern wrestling as well. And I've got to say, one that certainly got me wincing for the first time in a long time watching Hell in a Cell was Cody Rhodes versus Seth frickin' Rollins, because I tell you what, these two had 2 fantastic matches. Obviously, the first one at WrestleMania, and then obviously Backlash. I don't know if it was still WrestleMania Backlash at the time, but certainly was Backlash, where Cody was 2-0 over Seth Rollins to do this one more time in Hell in a Cell. And of course, Cody got himself injured, didn't he? Sort of tore the shoulder area, didn't he? Awful. That it was all purple and everything, and it was just a case of how is this dude going in there? But I mean, he'd said at the time that, well, I've torn this off the bone. It can't get worse. It's going to hurt, but I know it can't get worse, so I'm going to do it. And he was a one-armed man inside Hell in a Cell where Seth is attacking. And to be honest, the tango rule that goes with this match as well, because obviously for as much pain as Cody's in and how real it looks and how much credit goes to him for putting his body on the line, Seth is also the master puppet man in this, of actually making you feel with every move he's doing, the slow psychological storytelling, the sick and twisted nature. It just reminded me of what Hell in a Cell was all about, and it just made me really excited for the gimmick match once again. So for me, and Seth has been fantastic in Hell in a Cell matches. He's had great ones, obviously, with the likes of Kevin Owens in the past. He's been in there with Edge, of course, and they're two great matches. But for me, this one certainly is probably the best of Seth's work, and obviously was probably for me the defining moment that Cody Rhodes is the guy in WWE, because he made the return. He wanted to be the man. Yes, he was going to be on the shelf after this for many months, but I tell you what, Cody made a statement, and when he returned after that injury, he's never looked back. He's been a WrestleMania main eventer, a two-time Royal Rumble winner, and he's gone on then to finish the story. So a lot of that, I think, has come from this. I think it deserves its place on Mount Rushmore.
Dude, you've already beat me to my number 4 pick. It is my last match: Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Hell in a Cell. The fact that, like, we've obviously just come off watching the Vince McMahon documentary, and we've learned a lot about blurring the lines between real life and wrestling. This match is that. Like, the fact that Cody comes in and you don't know how bad that injury is, and the visual shock and the audible shock of the crowd when he takes that jacket off alone sets the standard for that match in terms of storytelling, because you're like, how does this guy, who is essentially with one arm tied behind his back, supposed to wrestle in the most deadliest game that WWE, or deadliest match that WWE put on in a Hell in a Cell, and then the psychological warfare, like you said, with even the other things like Seth wearing polka dot ring gear to mock him with his father and Dusty, and obviously everything they go through, even the bringing the sledgehammer into it and everything like that. It's so much fun. And like, I think, if I remember correctly, I believe it was my match of the year for 2022. So I'd be crazy not to have this on my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think it was my match of the year as well. Incredible match between those two, and certainly worthy of that position. But last, but certainly not least for me, in fact, I might think I'm saving the best to last, because it's my favorite match of all time. WrestleMania 28 2012, End of Era. Undertaker versus Triple H, with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee. 4 years in the making, this one. Obviously, Undertaker versus Shawn at WrestleMania 25. Then Taker takes Shawn's career at WrestleMania 26. Triple H looks for the revenge at 27, but actually makes Undertaker leave on a stretcher, to the point that he returns at 28. And this one is Hell in a Cell. The two most experienced Hell in a Cell wrestlers at that point as well, putting on nearly a 30-minute classic. For me, it is everything I love in pro wrestling: the drama, the storytelling, the in-ring action, the violence. It was all there, and I can tell you, I have never felt anything like the moment when Shawn Michaels, who wanted to be an impartial referee for a split second, turns to help his friend and realizes he wants the Undertaker streak to go, because he wants to be the reason for it. Hits that sweet chin music straight into Triple H to hit in the pedigree, and it still be a 2 count. And the way that Shawn just goes back to the turnbuckle, his reaction, the disbelief. It's seen nothing like it. It's just incredible stuff. I could say it's such good shit. It really is. It's just awesome. And the fact is as well, just at the end of the match, where Triple H is a beaten man, but he says, if you're going to put me down, you put me down properly, and to get sort of tombstoned as well for the 1, 2, 3. Incredible. And just the feel of WrestleMania as well, the 3 of them walking up together, arm in arm, and it's like, it's end of an era. You weren't supposed to feel like you were going to see this anymore. Yes, obviously, all 3 men would go on to wrestle again in some format. Obviously, Shawn Michaels would continue to be refereeing, Taker and Triple H would, but do you know what, just for that moment, that feeling, it culminated everything that I loved in pro wrestling into one match. And for me, it's still my favorite match of all time. So I would be an absolute Looney Tune to not have this as the final spot on the Mount Rushmore.
This was my honorable mention, because like you said, for everything you've just said, I can't really sum it up any better. It obviously does things like, in terms of storytelling, that you don't see too often, and it's kind of like magic captured in a bottle, that one. And it's, yeah, I totally agree with you. I knew that would be one of yours, or if not the one of yours. So it was kind of like I can get away with adding something else to my Mount Rushmore because I knew you were going to give it the proper respect it deserved. But yeah, otherwise, a very good shout.
Yeah, to be fair, I tried to give it the respect I thought I could, but glad to hear it was an honourable mention for you. Do you have any more honourable mentions that just missed the cut?
I do, and it sucked because I really enjoyed these other two matches. They're both actually women's matches, and one of them I think I didn't pick for the fact that it was during the pandemic, which was Bayley versus Sasha Banks at Hell in a Cell 2020. As much as the match is really, really good, it's the crowd aspect and the fact that we're in the Thunderdome that really lets it down for me. But otherwise, I still think that the match itself is really killer. And the other one is Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks. Again, another match where they did so many different things, kind of like how I thought about the tag team match. Becky versus Sasha, they did some unique offense stuff that we've never seen. Like, dude, at one point they tried to take each other's eyes out with the feet of a chair and the way it's set up. It's a great match. It's violent. Becky propping up the chair in the corner with some kendo sticks. There's just so much unique stuff to watch in this. And like I said, it's a shame that Mount Rushmore is only 4 because otherwise that was very close to being on my list.
I don't blame you at all. To be fair, Bayley versus Sasha just missed the cut for me for the same reason, by the way, with the Thunderdome era. Made it a bit unfortunate. I think Bianca and Bayley had a fantastic match as well the following year in Hell in a Cell. So that was
the only problem with that one I found is that it was 10 minutes long, and it was like they didn't get enough time with that one for me to give it an honorable mention.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But the last one I'll give as an honourable mention. I think some people will be saying, why have you not added this in there? This is one of the best ones. But it's going to get its honourable mention. Armageddon 2000, the 6-way match. It is absolute chaos from start to finish. And the reason it doesn't get into the top for me...
It should never...
I think it's brilliant. We've obviously divisive on this one. I think it's a brilliant Hell in a Cell match. Rikishi does go flying off the top of the cell onto the back of that truck, which, to be fair, is not as big a fall as some of the dangerous souls we've seen, but it's still a risky thing to do. But like to have some of the biggest wrestlers all under one roof, under one cage, let's be fair, this is the trial to probably what would have been the birth of the Elimination Chamber a couple of years later. They didn't ever do 6 in a cell anymore, but they did it in a different cage structure. But I mean, to have like Kurt Angle, The Rock, Steve Austin, Triple H, Undertaker, and Rikishi all in that Hell in a Cell match, just tearing one another apart. I remember at the time thinking to myself, like, this is like being like, when you go to a sweet shop and you pick all your favorite pick and mix and you put it in a bag, it's like pretty much that in a cell instead in a cage. So for me, I think that it's certainly worthy of an honorable mention because it's wacky, it's wild, and more than anything else, it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, I know where you're coming from, but for me, with that one, it's always going to come down to the choke slam off the top of the cage for me. That just, I'm like, he just falls backwards. There's no choke slam there. And then the finish is, although it's maybe the right decision in Angle winning, I think the finish is very lackluster because it comes from nowhere. But otherwise, you're right. It is exactly that. It's everything it says on the tin, a little bit more. It's a little bit crazy. And I don't think we've ever had another 6-man. We've had triple threats before, but I don't think we've ever had a 6-man ever since. So I can see why a lot of people would mention it as well.
Certainly did. As I say, I think it was the proving ground for what would be the Elimination Chamber a couple of years later. But I agree with you with that chokeslam. If anything, I would call that more likely the finger poke of doom to the real one that people make mention of. But hey, that's probably another story for another day. But that's our Mount Rushmore anyway. And just to go through the selections, NXTeve, your 4 are...
Yeah, the New Day versus the Usos from Hell in a Cell 2017, Undertaker versus Mankind from King of the Ring 1998, Triple H versus Cactus Jack from No Way Out 2000, and then Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins at Hell in a Cell 2022.
Fantastic. And mine ones as well are The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels from In Your House Bad Blood 1997. Also, The Undertaker versus Mankind from King of the Ring 1998. Cody Rhodes versus Seth freaking Rollins from 2022. And of course, from WrestleMania 28, End of an Era, Undertaker versus Triple H with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee. But that's what we think anyway. It's now your turn to get involved in the comments below. What is your Mount Rushmore of Hell in a Cell matches? I'd like to know your top 4 picks. And also, drop a like button if you've enjoyed this. This is a new series that's coming to the channel. There'll be more different topics we're going to be doing on this as well. So if you want to, feel free to throw some suggestions in the comment section as well. Feel free to do so. Your suggestion just might be selected. But that's all from us. Thank you to NXSteve as always, and thanks to everyone watching. If you want to see more on the channel, check on the videos on the side of your screen right now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.